are ready to go. Roll them.
Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello. We are so excited to have be hosting this meeting tonight for so you want to buy a boat? And that's a little bit of a New York accent, I think, that you just heard coming through there. My name is Melissa Gruden, and I am the Commodore of Island Yacht Club and one of the organizers of Women's Sailing Seminar. And this is the first time that we at Women's Sailing Seminar have put together an event at the beginning of the year. But we were so excited last year with our being able to do Women's Sailing Seminar virtual that we decided to take advantage of the virtual arena and do more events. So we're pretty sure that most of you know how to use Zoom at this point. You're all muted. We're encouraging you all to participate in chat to ask questions. We will be monitoring them. And we will share the questions with Michelle at different points. And we are recording this webinar, and it will be available for you to be able to peruse online at www.iyc.org or the Women's Sailing Seminar website, which will link you into it, but that's also www.womensailingseminar.com.
But we also have our handout. Don't forget, we did a handout for everybody.
Exactly. So the handouts have come in the email to you, and you should be able to print them out, take them with you when you want to go buy a boat, take them with you when you want to call Michelle and ask her more questions, just to be able to have the information that Michelle's going to be talking about tonight for you to be able to get, to be able to get a hold of quickly. So on the next page, we have a word about Island Yacht Club. So as I said, this is our first Women's Sailing Seminar and Island Yacht Club joint event in a while. Island Yacht Club is having a membership drive right now. We have lowered our dues to $50 for short term because we are a paper club for the moment. We offer reciprocal benefits to other yacht clubs and marinas. We are having racing and cruise outs. We have our membership to PICYA. We have a dormant liquor license. We are hoping to be able to get it back to use. And we have 50 years of human capital at Island Yacht Club. That's not to say that we're all ancient, but we're just a yacht club that care about each other, and we're a yacht club that enjoys being together. And even though we cannot do it face-to-face as much right now, we are taking advantage of being able to Zoom. So on February 1, which is a Monday night at 7 o'clock, we're going to be having a meetup, an IYC meetup. And if you'd like to join us, please let us know. You can email us. You can call us. You can just go on www.islandyachtclub.iyc.org. And
what was that date again?
Oh, it's Monday night, February 1.
Okay.
So it's a week from tonight, right? And so without further ado, let's go on to the next page. Okay, so we are in a pandemic, and we have been put in our place in terms of being able to get together socially, but we are still putting on events, and we still want to be able to keep the momentum going. We want to be able to keep this year interesting to you, whether you're Zooming virtually or you're able to meet us down at the water at some point, which we hope to. So I told you already about the meetup that's coming up. On February 14, we're continuing our Island Day racing. It's also on our website. You can get information on it. We were successful in the last race we won that we ran. We were doing single-handed and double-handed. It's also valid. So if you want to get out with your honey or whoever is in your pod, your bubble, you can register for Island Days on JibeSet and come join us on February 14. On February 15 and February 22nd, we have a female diesel mechanic who is amazing. Her name is Meredith, and she lives up in the state of Washington. And we're going to be Zooming with her. She's going to be talking about diesel engine 101, and then also changing oil. She'll give us a demonstration, and she'll also be telling us what to look for in surveying your engine if you're interested in buying a boat. And I think that's something that Michelle will be touching on tonight too. Mid-March, we're thinking maybe doing something boating bloopers. I think we all probably have a story about that, more to be revealed as we move along. Mid-April, we want to do another part of this. So you want to buy a boat. We want to do dealing with insurance and surveying boats, all very important. And we're trying to put that together right now. Mid-May, explain this, tell me what it is that we're doing here, not pushing around a thing or do this or do that. Give me a reason why things are getting done. And September 17 and 18 on our calendar, ladies, Women's Sailing Seminar. We're hoping to be together this year. So stay tuned for more information about that. Ross? Okay, we're just going to take 30 seconds and we're going to listen to our Linda Newland, who is in the podcast Out the Gate. And she's got a resume, bar none, but she is one of the founders of Women's Sailing Seminar 30 years ago. And we love promoting her and she loves promoting us, and it's a mutual admiration society. So Ross is just going to play 30 seconds of this wonderful podcast, and you will be able to hear it if you just jot down that URL. It's about 43 minutes long, and this is kind of almost into the 7th minute, buying her first boat.
I'd sort of cut my teeth on this one.
I want to talk about that. But first, I'm curious, what was the impetus to start sailing in the first place? Had you done any sailing before then? You mentioned you started with your husband. Was it you or he who was the driver behind that?
He bought the boat from a friend of his who wanted to get rid of it. And what we didn't know then that we found out later was that the friend was frustrated because he didn't take lessons and he had some of the same experiences we had later. So he just wanted to dump the boat. So he sold it to my husband for like, I don't know, $2,500, something like that, with all of these great, promotional comments like, you're gonna love sailing. You just have to have this boat. This is such a deal. Neither of us knew anything. I mean, we had the boat for probably 6 months before it ever went out of the slip, because we didn't even know how to start the outboard engine to get it out of the slip, let alone even put a sail on it. So it wasn't until some people down the dock from us that were observing us coming down on weekends, cleaning the boat, polishing the boat, and realized that we had no idea of what to do with the boat, that they came over and offered to take us out on the Alameda Oakland estuary for a sail. We said, sure. So we watched them carefully as they put the sails on it and got us out of the slip and took us on a ride for our lives. It was probably blowing 20 knots in the estuary. And so that was our initiation to sailing. And after that, we just sort of bumbled along on our own. It's a wonder we didn't kill ourselves until the fateful day that we went under the Park Street Bridge with the mast. And I fell off the boat and had to swim ashore when the boat went sideways because the mast caught under the bridge and the boat went over on its side. And
Geez, that must have been scary.
I didn't think about being scared. I was thinking more about saving my life.
Yeah.
So if you can listen to all 44 minutes of Linda's podcast, it's just amazing. She has a resume, bar none, and she is a wonderful public speaker. And we are just so happy to have her be part of our organizing committee for Women's Sailing Seminar, as well as one of our very wonderful support. She loves to support Women's Sailing Seminar and is an advocate for women. So here's our agenda for the evening. We are going to welcome Michelle Leonard with arms wide open, and she is going to talk about types of boats, buying considerations, cost of ownership, buying process, registration, documentation, and you can put your questions in chat as we move along. Michelle will watch them, we'll watch them, and we'll just help moderate it as the evening progresses. We'll try to be done within an hour, hour and 15 minutes, depending on the questions. But please, no stupid questions. And as you can see with Linda's first time buying a boat, stuff happens. So it's pretty good to be prepared. And I think Michelle is going to tell you a little bit about how to prepare yourself. I think we have Michelle's bio coming up.
Do you want to go straight into Michelle introducing yourself for us?
Sure, I can do that. Gosh, there it is. Just read it. Just kidding. No, so it's maybe a little out of order, but I started sailing in college, and you get out of college, at least at the time I did, and it was like, ooh, I need to buy a new car. I've been running around in this rattle trap for so long. I need to buy a new car, but if I bought a brand new car, then I couldn't afford a boat. And so I ended up buying a used car and a used boat. And my first boat purchase, I was very, very fortunate because I bought it out of a newspaper ad. Somebody I didn't know, didn't have any idea. I drove from Jefferson City, Missouri to St. Louis, Missouri. Had a trailer hitch put on the back of my Pontiac Firebird. And then ended up having to do the wiring myself because I didn't know what to do. So I had to figure that out. But I got there and the guy's boat was in the garage and he's like, yeah, here you go. And I handed him off the cash and took the boat and what he handed me. And, there are just really good boat people out there because I had no idea if I had everything for a boat that I needed. Luckily, I had each and every part and nothing extra. So I was able to put the boat together and keep using it. And it was a Hobie Cat 14. If you know, they're catamarans. They were a single-handed sailboat at the time. No engine. Everything's all about the sails. A lot of sail area. Very lightweight boat on a trailer. And I just learned how to do everything myself. And I learned. I did take a PE class in college for sailing. But then when I bought the Hobie Cat, I didn't know anything. I literally had a book that I would have out called Jake Rubb Hobie Cat Sailing. And I got that book out and it's like, oh, how do I get the mast up? Oh, well, you have to do that and you have to do that. Okay, I can do this, get my friends around me. But since then I graduated to a bigger boat, which is our Tartan 3400, which was in the page up before. That was a picture of me sailing it in the estuary. And it's my baby now. My baby grew up, right? So the boat is now my baby. And so she's at Oakland Yacht Club and I love sailing her. She's just gonna have her for a long time. So I try to take good care of her. So, and then along the way, I got my captain's license because I was putting in a lot of hours on my boat and I wanted to learn more. And that's really why I went after my license because I spend a lot of time on the water, but there's so much more to learn. And another piece of that was getting into yacht sales. It's like, well, I can learn even more if I get into yacht sales. And I'd helped like 3 different people buy boats and just along the way, it's like, oh, you want to buy a boat? Oh, did you know so-and-so has a Catalina 32? Maybe you want to go look at it, and like, oh, don't be shy. Just go talk to them about it and offer. And, I was just kind of helping people. And some of my friends just said, look, you just should just go do this and sell boats. And so another friend of mine offered to mentor me and get me started. And then from there, once a broker agreed to take me on, then I had to get a license with the Department of Boating and Waterways in Sacramento. So you can't just walk out the door and say, well, I think I want to go sell boats today. I think I'm going to sell this $200,000 boat for somebody. That's actually not legal in the state of California. You need to be licensed and you need to be working with a broker who has an escrow account, very much like real estate. So I happen to work for Atomic Tuna Yachts, and they are in Alameda now. They have an office over between gates 9 and 10, and we have a sales dock there. And you're welcome to stop by. However, I don't spend a lot of time in the office. I'm usually either working with my clients or showing boats, but I don't spend a lot of time in the office, but there is usually somebody in the office. And Melissa and I agreed to do a little giveaway tonight. I'm not really promoting Atomic Tuna so much as I want to share the information. So please understand that I'm not just here, but we thought it would be nice to give away a hat. So I don't know if I'm on video.
We're going to do it at the end.
Yeah, but anyway, I just wanted to show it real quick.
Yes, we can see it. Beautiful.
Okay.
And we're also going to give away a women's sailing seminar hat as well.
Yeah, so yeah.
We're going to pick 2 numbers from your when you registered, and we'll let you know what those winning numbers are at the end, and we will send you your hats.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, that kind of gives you an idea how I got into sailing. And then since I bought my first Hobie cat, I had like, I think like 6 other Hobie cats along the way. And I had my Hobie 16 for like 30 years. I just love that boat as well. And then we bought an in the water boat, an Islander 28. We bought a $10,000 boat. So we've done both ends of the spectrum, where we bought from a private party and kind of went at it a little blind. And then we also worked with a broker, and those were 2 entirely different experiences. So I learned as much as I could from our experience, and like to share some of that sometimes. So we might get into some of those stories, but let's get moving along. And there's more opportunities for me to tell stories as I go. So we'll get moving so you guys can get to the nitty gritty. So we have a poll, and Ross is gonna tally the results. So one is, do you plan to buy a boat in the next 12 months? And if so, what is your budget? So we kind of want to hear from you guys and what you're thinking about doing. So if you can take the poll, if you kind of know your way around, and you know, kind of let us know what's out there, and if we can answer some questions for you. So give you guys a chance to do that as we carry on. All righty, poll is open. Okay, so we can go to the next slide.
Yeah. You guys all see the poll? It should have just appeared.
It popped up on mine.
Oh, good.
Okay. So I'm going to really start like with the very, very basics, and I'm just going to cover this quickly, is what kind of boats are out there. And I'm going to make an assumption that everybody's looking at sailboats, because this is the women's sailing seminar. So I'm going to make that assumption and start with, are you looking for a sloop? Right? This is pretty much what everybody's sailing, from a little Moore 24, J24, Merritt 25, Islanders, you know, to my Tartan is a sloop. So then the other thing is a ketch, which are bigger boats, usually more for passage making and cruising. And then the next slide is a cat rigged or unirig, which is like the Freedom boats, where they don't have side stays. And then the non-such and the Wiley Cat, that I call them windsurfer boats, because they have these big booms that just look like oversized windsurfers. And there are people that absolutely love those boats, and I hear nothing but great things about them. They're just a different type of sailing, but it can certainly be a good answer for people to have just one sail to deal with, rather than you know, the traditional main and jib. So so then the cutter rig is a sloop with 2 head sails, and again, this is more of a cruising boat, and this is a Tiana 47 cutter, and it has the inside stay sail that can be quite useful in storms and getting around. So okay, next page. And there's already a good question out here, and hopefully we'll cover. What I'd really like to learn tonight is about, I'm sorry, what's SFSBO? For sale by owner? Oh, for sale by owner deals. And what are the common pitfalls? Yeah, we can do that, because I didn't intend to, like, I'm not here to sell my brokerage or do that. This really pretty much, the theory and the methodology goes with any boat you're going to buy. So if you have a broker, yeah, they can hold your hand and they can help you get through that. But I think I've kind of covered more of the things that you should do this, whether you're buying with a broker or buying from a for sale by owner. So I'm only going to spend a little bit time on the buying process through a broker. The rest of it is like, what should you be thinking and talking about when you're going to buy a boat, whether it's from an owner or through a broker? So the first thing I think is so important, and Melissa even questioned me on this, but you really need to know where your price point is. What are you comfortable spending? Because boy, you can get out there and fall in love with a boat that is way out of your price range, and it can happen so quickly. So you need to establish your budget and really know what you're gonna, what you want to spend and what you can afford to spend. And a lot of that also has to do with what the monthly and annual costs are. So you'll see that I bolded that right there in the middle. And that's because I have a spreadsheet that's going to kind of show you some really basic ideas of what it costs to own a boat if you've never owned a boat before. And some of the purchase price decision has to do, if you want to buy a $10,000 boat like we did first, so we paid cash for it, right? Honestly, if you are, have a really good credit score and have a good credit union, you could probably get a personal loan to cover the cost of a boat when it's under $50,000 or so. If you have a home and can use home equity, that's another really great way to fund older boats that can be every bit as good as a newer, fancier boat or whatever that's not as old. But there are some really good 30-year-old boats out there, and even 40-year-old boats. So you just got to go into it with your eyes open, and how much is the maintenance and how much work are you going to need to do and what kind of money do you have to put in it? So, another idea you can look at is lightstream.com is a website that advertises online doing loans for boats and RVs. And they'll give you like a rate and roughly estimates and that kind of thing. So you can do a lot of this on your own, even without a broker. There's so much you can do on the internet now. You don't need a broker necessarily, but there are some advantages, and I can throw those out later.
So let's talk about the results of the poll so we can clear that off the screen so people don't have to be looking at it if they don't need to. So I think Ross is going to end the poll.
Okay.
Can you see it, Michelle?
I can't. Oh, there it comes. Okay, so like more than half are ready to buy a boat in the next 12 months. So let's, and not all of those are going to be, in fact, I like that. Almost half of them are going to be $30,000 or less. There's so many boats out there, and you probably aren't going to work with a broker in that price range. So I really hope that this can help you avoid some of the pitfalls of going for sale by owner, because I'm really not here to advertise for my brokerage. I want to help people understand a little bit more how to get the most out of what they're looking for. So there's a wide variety there, but it's definitely, you're looking for that older boat that is fun, is your racing boat, for fun sails, for cruising, for single handing, just to get out on the water, a day sailor. Those are all the questions you need to consider. It's like, what do I really want out of a boat? It's so easy to fall in love with the boat and fall in love with the boating dream. But it helps if you stand back and say, what is it that I really want? Do I really want a wheel or a tiller? Do I care? Do I need to be able to stand up inside? Am I 6'5"? And that makes a big difference, because the boats over 6 foot in the interior there aren't as many out there. So if you're tall, you want to know whether that's going to be important to you. One of the things for me when we bought our boat was I wanted to be able to stand up safely under the boom. Now, granted, our headspace under the boom is right at about 6 foot, 6'1" normally, unless we pull up the topping lift a little bit. But that's a consideration for me that ended up being very important. That piece, and the fact that we didn't have a traveler inside the cockpit. Because when we first started off, we were looking for a particular kind of race boat, racer cruiser called a CNC 99. And we went after that really hard, but we couldn't get a sea trial on one because we made 2 offers, and we got beat out on, one offer we got beat out. We didn't even know somebody else was bidding, which is a horrible feeling when you're going after a boat. And the other one, we went out on our sea trial. So we were going out for our sea trial and a survey. So we had the 2 brokers on the boat, the listing and the selling broker. And we had our surveyor, and it was my husband and I, and la-di-da, we're going to go haul out first. Then we're going to go out and do our sea trial while the surveyor is playing around down below. We got to our haul out and lifted it out of the water, and the keel moved. That's not a good sign. That's not a good thing to happen. So the surveyor kind of touched the keel with his foot, and it moved like an inch or 2. So that was the end of that day's sea trial and survey. We turned around and hightailed it back to the slip and ended up getting our money back and dropping that boat. For us, when that happened, where we lost 2 boats in a row, we stood back and said, is the universe trying to tell us something? Because I'll tell you, and I tell everybody this, there's a magic that happens that when you bond with a certain boat, and maybe you don't believe in that stuff, but I do, because I've seen it every time. People know when they get on a boat, this is the boat I want. And you start bonding with it right away, like a baby or a kid. And so when you lose it, you lose, it's like, oh my gosh, my friend left me. And it wasn't even it was a new friend, but it's gone. And so we stepped back and said, well, if we could have anything we want, what would we spend our money on? And it's like, oh, I love that tartan we saw at the boat show, right? And it's like, yeah, but we can't afford a tartan. That's way out of our price range. Well, then you start looking and you go, oh, there's a 34-foot tartan that maybe if we stretch our budget, we can afford it. So we started doing our research, starting looking at it, and ended up going after it. And it's the best boat we could have bought. We are just, every day I walk up to that boat, I'm happy, and that's what you want. When you walk up to the dock, you want to look at your boat and say, I'm so glad that's my boat. And I will be honest, I loved our Islander 28. My husband had to convince me to get rid of it because I love that Islander 28. I bonded with it. I loved it. It was good for me. But it was also a lot of work, and it was a lot of work for him because I point and he fixes it, right? I don't do a lot of the work myself. So it was a lot of work for him. And he's the one who said, come on, let's go ahead. We're committed now in the water boats, into a keel boat. Let's go ahead and move into something bigger and nicer kind of thing, and newer, that doesn't require quite so much work. And that's kind of our boat story, how we ended up on the tartan. We stretched our budget. We're glad we did. And we have a beautiful boat that we're happy every time we walk up the dock to it. So, but those are decision process that we went through. Is I made a list of things I wanted. I wanted the interior, which you can tell I'm on a green screen, right? If my hands disappear or go weird. I'm on a green screen. This is the inside of my boat. I wanted that wood traditional interior. I wanted that cherry. I wanted that classic blue. And some other people love the modern look, right? That clean and square corners and bright white kind of light interior. Other people love that. So it's, what do you love? What do you like about it? And then as far as, I'm going to do one more point on this slide and then we'll go on. But, do you want an inboard or an outboard? If you're going to do a smaller boat, an outboard can save you some money, but it can also be a pain in the butt. So, but an inboard, if it has to be replaced, that's a chunk of money. That can be $20,000, $30,000. So an engine is a very important part of the boat. And it's good to know. Notice I made a little note, diesel or gas. Gas sailboat engines are going the way of dinosaurs. They're really hard to get worked on. So you might find you get a really good deal on a boat with an atomic 4. Even if it's running well, just be really cautious because it's gotten so hard to look at, to get somebody to work on them. They're aging out. The people that were experts in them are aging out because they're not being built anymore. And it's just a tough one. Real quick, somebody asked me what year my tartan is. It's a 2006. Sorry. But yeah, 96 tartan 3500 needed too much work. If somebody doesn't take care of it, even though they are really good, solid boats, probably don't want to buy it. You want to find a boat that somebody has loved and cared for. So let's keep moving. If are there any other questions like in that direction? We can always come back to them. So feel free to toss them out there. So then keep asking that question, what is my dream boat? And again, I mentioned that I like the classic lines. I'm not a fan of, I'll call it a pizza pie boat. I sell Benettos and Genots and Hansas, I'll sell one of those. But I'm not as big a fan of the pizza pie as some of the classics, like a tartan, like an Erickson, like what else is out there? There's just so many really good boats out there. A Tayana, a Cabo Rico, some of the big cruising boats. So I really love those. A friend of mine just bought the most incredible boat, and you can see it from the estuary. So when you're going past Oakland Yacht Club at the estuary, there's a Hinckley 48. It's a 2008 Hinckley 48. And it's a dark blue hull. It's at the end of my dock, which is dock 5 in Oakland Estuary. I swear to you, that is the most beautiful boat I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of boats. So anyway, just if you want to take a look at a gorgeous boat, cruise by that Hinckley. It is just so gorgeous. I'm totally envious of the guy who bought it. And that's another story entirely, but good friend of mine at the end of the dock, and it's beautiful. I keep asking him to take me for a ride. So I'm going to get on that Hinckley. So again, answer those questions. Do you want that wood interior? Does it even matter to you? Are you thinking it's mostly a day sailor where you're not going to be down below? That's kind of the way I viewed the Islander when we bought it, is down below. It was kind of moldy, which maybe was not the best thing. The head worked. We put new cushions in it so that we could cruise and sleep aboard it. But we were on each settee. The V berth wasn't nearly big enough for us to sleep in. So we did things like that. We did a little cruising in it, in a little 28-foot boat. But most of the time we were upstairs, you know, up above in the cockpit and sailing off into the sunset kind of thing, you know, just getting a good sail in on it. So anyway, then the cockpit comfort, I think I talked a little bit about that with when we were shopping for a boat. Turned out I didn't like having the traveler in the cockpit at all. I worried about the comfort of my friends when we were going downwind and the traveler is all the way across the boat. And my friends that are not sailors are sitting there and don't know that they could get guillotined by a bad jibe. So then you also want to think about cockpit comfort. Like, how many people do you want? And is the cockpit going to be wet? Does it need a Dodger? Does it need a Bimini? You know, how are you going to use it? Are you going to take it to up the Delta? Yeah, then you're going to want a Bimini. Are you going to go out on a day like today? When I was out, I was very grateful for that Dodger, even though if you look at my boat, you'll notice I don't have a Dodger and I don't want one. But every now and then on a day like today, I would be wishing I had a Dodger because it was pretty wet. We took a lot of water over the bow because it was fetching all the way down across the slot. So, you know, do you want a roller furling main? Are you against those? Would you prefer a stack pack or wear a slab, which when I say a slab, it's where you flake the sail down onto the boom and hang on to it as you're getting it flaked down into layers. So, you know, those decisions can also be important in what boat you're looking at. And then how much time are you going to spend on it? Is this for a live aboard? Is this for cruising at some point? You know, even maybe not now, but cruising, live aboard, like I said, day sailing, just enjoying at the dock. Do you want to, you know, do you want it to be an off-site office because you're crazy tired of COVID and need to be somewhere else? You know, all those things. So all those things are good to think about. Then you move into the reality when we start talking about surveys and how good a shape is the boat in? What's the age of the rigging? When was the last bottom job? How many hours on the engine? Now I said 4,000 is a lot, but an engine that's been maintained really well and might be 30 years old, if it's been maintained well and looks good, you can probably go to 10,000 or more without repowering. But if you do have to consider repowering, they quote me 20,000 plus, because it's usually accessibility is a lot to do with that. But my biggest concern is not a high number of hours. It has more to do with too little hours, because that means the boat has sat a lot. And a boat that sits has no one to see when it leaks, when it rains. And a boat that sits has no one to keep it running often enough so that you don't get a buildup of condensation. A boat that sits just gets dirty and nobody takes care of it and it starts rusting. And so too little hours means that it hasn't really even been broken in potentially. So those are things to look at and think about when you're looking at an older boat. You know, a 30-year-old boat with only 100 hours on it would scare the hell out of me, quite frankly. I'd rather have 4,000 hours than 100 hours on a 30-year-old boat. So what are the electronics on it? Because if you want to update electronics, that can be quite expensive. However, you know, in this day and age, I just looked at a boat with somebody that we made an offer on today, and the electronics are really old, but you know what? You can put a iPad on there so easily. And I did a delivery with my husband from Long Beach down to San Diego on a 2011 Beneteau 50. And it was fairly new electronics, right? 2011. And I preferred my iPad because I felt like it responded better and it gave me more realistic look. It was just so much easier to manage going, you know how iPads are, you can touch a screen and go in and out really quickly. Whereas some of the electronics are kind of slow, you know, you're click, 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 in, out, 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 in, out. And with my iPad, I could also do a Navionics trace versus learning a brand new system on a 2011 Beneteau. So then, you know, when you get into batteries are also a big asset on the boat, and you need to think about how old are they, because that could be something that you might have to kick in some bucks in right away. And it's a basic maintenance item, but sometimes you can't get an allowance from the seller on those because it's like, hey, it's maintenance, your turn. So think about that. Okay, so talking away. Are there any questions we need to catch up with? Oh, somebody is asking about electronics on the iPad. I didn't hook up the iPad to the boat. I just kept it charged and ran off and Navionics. And that wasn't even basic internet. It was able to connect to GPS. So it kept us going on GPS. So, and I actually had my phone on as a backup, because if you are going off coastal or offshore, you always want backups to your backup, right? You want your Raymarine that you've got, but then you want an iPad, and then you want to know that you can pull it up on your phone, and then you want to have your charts. You never want to go without your charts. So good to know. But the iPad, I would say, is an easy answer to a chart plotter that's a little old or non-existent. Oh, is there a way to tell how many hours are on their engine? That is a really good question, because some older boats, either the tachometer has stopped working or it never had a tachometer. I had a Sabre 34 that it had a tachometer, but it was outside and in the direct sunlight, and it had totally faded all the numbers. So it had a tachometer, but we couldn't read it. And we tried all these different ways, you know, get a flashlight, take a picture of it and blow it up. And we could not tell what the hours were on it. And so you just have to really get a good look at, we had a mechanical surveyor come on and take a good look at it. And he agreed, we can't tell how many hours are on it. And then also we just had this issue on our boat where the tachometer died. So it stopped gathering hours. And I'm like, oh no, I can't have this. So I've ordered a new one, because I use the hours on my engine to keep track of how much fuel I want to put in, because fuel gauges on a boat are notoriously get old quickly. They get hung up, they get electrolysis, they get whatever happens to them. They are notorious for not being very exact. So I don't trust our gauges. If it's anything below a half, I want to put fuel in. But I feel a lot better about what I've been doing if I know how many hours I have. So next week, my new tachometer is supposed to be in, but I think I've missed probably about 50 hours. I don't know if they're going to come back when they hook it up, because it is an electronic one. I don't know if I'm going to get those hours back, but you do, you know, if you can find out how many hours on it, great, but don't take that as gospel, because the tachometer could have stopped working. It may never have had a tachometer at all to keep track of it. So interesting questions. So good ones.
Somebody wanted to know the price of batteries.
Price of batteries. Oh, good question. West Marine, they can range, you can do the dry cell ones for, I think, like, I would feel better if I actually looked it up, so I'm going to wing it here. So like 250, I think, would be the bottom if you do a wet cell. But wet cells require maintenance, and a lot of people forget to put water in their batteries, and then you've spent all that money and they're no good. The AGMs are more expensive. They run like a 500 to 1,000 a piece, I think. And then when you need 6, right, on a bigger boat, that adds up, right? So you can be looking at a few $1,000s in batteries. And if you're going to be replacing one, you probably want to do them all at the same time. It's kind of like if you have an electronic device that runs on batteries and you know, one battery is not as strong, you need to just replace them all. But it's a big dollar amount. And that's part of when we get into the cost of owning a boat. That's like, oh, you need to amortize that. And if you're good at budgeting, it's like you budget for that. You know that every 5 years they can go 10 years if you watch them and take good care of them, do all the right things. But, at least every 5 to 6 years, be ready to have to buy new batteries. Be ready, because those things happen. Somebody uses golf cart batteries, and those can be good. We've used RV batteries before too, and I do believe those are a little bit cheaper. Like you can get, wait, let me ask my husband, can you get RV batteries at Costco? Or you can get batteries at Costco? Oh, sorry, he's got his headset on. I told him to be quiet. But anyway, I think you can get batteries other places besides West Marine, and it works. And Ross has done a good answer here, because there are a lot of variables with batteries too. So I think I've probably given prices for bigger ones, because those are the ones I've sold on boats lately. There's also lithium, and lithium is the really high price stuff right now. But they work really well with solar setups, as Ross is throwing out there. So good for, they can be good for 7, 8. One of the surveyors even said 10 years if they're well maintained, where you keep them charged when you're supposed to and don't overcharge them and don't undercharge them, and, take good care of them basically. So it's a variable that can't be defined. Same as pricing, because it depends on whether you've got just a starter battery on a little day sailor, or you've got a bank of 6 that are trying to run a Beneteau with a generator perhaps, and with a microwave and air conditioning or something. So can we move on to the next page? And if you still have questions, throw them out there. We can always come back. So here's just a really, really rough idea of what it costs to own a boat. So it starts with, did you get a loan on your boat? I said no, because I think we are talking about more under $30,000 boats. But then your slip fees, and there again, that's a big variable. If you go into San Francisco or Sausalito, you're going to pay as much as $20 a foot. So that's a big variable. This is a Marina Village example. And then I think Oakland Yacht Club at a 38 foot is around $13 right now, but you have to be a member. So slip fees are going to vary a bit, but you check them out. And if you end up buying a bigger boat, or you want to do a live aboard, do your homework for a marina first. Because if you buy your first boat and you've decided to go big and go for it and get a 42-foot boat, and then you can't find a slip right now, or a slip in the area you want to be, you're going to have to make some concessions and change some things and think about it. So it could be inconvenient. If you live in say South San Francisco and you want to own a boat, it's long waiting lists and the harbors that are close to you, but you could maybe get into Alameda or Emeryville, right? So do your homework, and you can look them up and find your way around. Electricity, it depends on whether you keep your boat plugged in all the time, whether you're there on weekends running the air conditioner and the generator, or the air conditioner and the heater and the microwave and the whatever else you're doing. So that varies. Insurance, what's interesting is insurance is kind of across the board, around $850 to $1,000 or less. Because if you can get it through your homeowners, like we had State Farm on the Islander, it was a $10,000 boat. We just wanted to make sure we had liability. And so we did that through State Farm. When we bought the big boat that we have a loan on, we needed to go bigger on insurance, and we need to make sure that we had the coverage that we needed to not only cover our loan, but to cover any big losses. So I can put a plug in for one place that I know of. And, I'm just putting that out there because I know that he's really good about getting quotes for people and talking to you. And that's Twin Rivers Marine, Gary Clausen. He's Bay Area. He's been doing it a long time. He knows marine industry. But again, you can also go to Geico and get a much cheaper policy than $850. Or Progressive or Travelers are also other ones I've heard people get. So one of the sneaky things that people don't understand is that you own a boat in Alameda County or any other county, is you have to pay property tax on it. And in Alameda, I'm going to tell you, it's 1.3%. And they kick you in the tail with that about mid-year. So it runs January to December, but they don't actually bill you until July. And it is not for January of 2021. You're actually being billed for January of 2020, even though you're getting billed in 21. So like right now we're selling boats. And if I'm selling a boat, that seller still needs to pay property tax because he or she owned it in 2020. And that July bill is going to be for 2020, not for 2021, even though it comes so late in 2021. So people ask that question a lot. And we actually, on our website, I think we actually have a little explanation on that for people. So then miscellaneous maintenance. And I have to say, I think I ballparked that way too low, way too low. Because if you're thinking about, you're going to replace your rigging in a few years, you're going to have to up that by a lot. Standing rigging is going to run you 4,000 to 6,000 or 7,000, depending on what all you're going to get done on your boat or how big the boat is. Now the Islander, we did the standing rigging on it. It was only 2,000, 2,200 or something like that, with Glenn Hansen, who is one of the better known riggers in the Alameda area. So, but if you're looking at rigging, that's a big chunk. And sometimes we get allowances for that when we're doing surveys and negotiating deals. We're, we'll negotiate for rigging if it's really old. And there we have engine service. Again, I feel like I might have gone too low. That's a perfectly running engine that doesn't need anything. One of the interesting things I have learned in my 2 years of doing this sales, every boat should look at their mixing elbow. Even if you have somebody else looking at your engine for them, ask how well their mixing elbow is holding up. I would say almost every boat that I have had surveyed has had to have the mixing elbow replaced. So what did I do? I had somebody come and look at my boat and I said, how's that mixing elbow look? Well, it's cracked and it's about to blow. What? It's like I take care of my boat. That's one of those things. Keep an eye on that mixing elbow and the mixing elbow is what happens on raw water cooled engines, right? They have to, they get the water cooled and then it gets shot back out the back. And so that's a really heavily used part and it gets a lot of raw water through it and you need to keep an eye on it. So I think every boat I've sold but one has had to have that replaced, interesting enough. So keep an eye on it. Bottom diving service, that varies as well. Who you can get cheaper, you can get more expensive, but you pretty much need to do it a minimum of 4 times a year. And then the haul sand and paint the bottom. Again, you can get those prices off the internet, but you need to figure that you've got to do it at least every 3 years. I've seen paint last 4 and 5 years if it's handled right. But you just got to keep in mind that's a big expense when it hits you and you got to be ready for it. Now I noticed I saw somewhere that some people are looking to maybe live aboard. Do your homework if you think you're going to live aboard. I've actually talked to a couple of Southern California clients out of coming up to look at boats because they were saying, well, I'm going to live aboard. And I'm like, have you gone to the marinas in Marina Del Rey or Long Beach and asked them if they have a slip available for live aboard? You're going to get a reality check. They don't return your phone calls. They won't talk to you. They won't rent you a slip. They don't want any more liveaboards. We do have a limit to liveaboards. The marinas that are following the BCDC rules are only allowing 10% liveaboards. So at Oakland Yacht Club, we have about 200 slips. We have 20 liveaboard slips then, and that's the max. So, and at Oakland Yacht Club, we do have liveaboard slips that come up and are available, but you have to be a member for 9 months first. So if you want to be a part of our little world, then you have to definitely get to be a member first. And at Marina Village, they also have a long wait list. Who else has liveaboards? There are various places. Emeryville has liveaboards, and they actually have some open because they went through and got rid of a bunch of derelict boats. And by doing that, they opened up a bunch of liveaboard slips. So that's the other thing. There are also rules about which boats can be liveaboards. They're not going to let you live on a 28-foot boat in most slips, in most harbors. They pretty much say 34, 35 feet. So Santa Cruz has liveaboards, yeah. So it varies by marina. And I love our liveaboards because they keep an eye on our boat, which is really, really nice. So the adjusted estimate for miscellaneous, you know what? Somebody asked what the adjusted estimate for miscellaneous maintenance was. It can vary by so much. It could be $1,000 a year when you're getting ready for rigging and a haul and paint, or $1,000 a month, you know, if you're coming up on it quick, or you can budget it over the time like I did and say $100 or so a month. So that really varies, but you just wanted you guys to be ready for it. The other thing is if you want somebody else to wash your boat or pump it out, those are all things I try to do on my own. I will get a friend of mine to do the all grip hull for me sometimes because I get tired. I'm old and scrubbing that whole side is a lot of work. But mostly I do a lot of my own washing because I like to wash my boat when I come back off the bay. So next slide, and this one I'm really going to breeze through because it is more of the broker buying process, right? And what we can do to help you. But this is also what you need to go through and think about when you're buying from a private party, right? So you've shopped and you found a boat through latitude 38. Do you need a broker? Well, not through latitude 38. If you're buying a boat from a broker and they are the listing agent for it, then consider getting your own broker, like calling me or somebody else to represent you. That's really the best way to do it. I have handled more than half of my boats. I've handled both sides. And I will be quite honest with you that it's difficult. I literally stop thinking about one side at a time when I'm talking to the buyer. If I'm having to represent both sides, this is just the way I do it. I completely forget about the seller and I think, what is the best for my buyer? And then when I have to take that offer back to my seller, I completely try to think of all the things the buyer told me. And it's like, what's the best thing for my seller? And so it's really walking a tightrope. And if you don't have to, I would recommend getting your own broker. If you found a boat at a different brokerage, or you find a boat with me and I'm the listing agent, bring another broker along. And if you don't, I'm fine if you trust me. And I promise you that I will do everything to be as fair and whatever, but also consider getting representation. Now, if you're buying something out of latitude 38, you still want to go through this process where you deposit it with somebody. But if you're depositing a lot of money on a boat through latitude 38, say you found $100,000 boat that you think is a great deal on latitude 38, you're going to have to put up a pretty decent amount of money. Think about actually going online and doing like escrows online or something and putting it in a safe place where both of you, neither one of you can mess with the funds. It's part of a buyer-seller transaction that is guided through the escrow. So if you work with a broker, you get that automatically with us because it's part of the California law. When it's an individual sale, you need to stand up for yourself and say, I want my money protected. By and large, boat people are good people. I say this all the time. It's like, I got very lucky with every sale I bought. I bought our Islander from some other sailors in Richmond Yacht Club that knew somebody who knew somebody I knew. So I trusted them and we got a good boat. I'll be honest, we didn't even survey that boat. We just took it. So I didn't know about all this stuff then. This was 9 years ago. So, but if you're buying a boat, spend the money to do a survey. It's all about doing your due diligence. What am I buying? If I'm buying even a $10,000 boat, put some money into what does it really look like? What does it look like below the surface? Because I can tell you from all the surveys I've done now with boats I've sold, is there's stuff hiding in there that only a surveyor is going to find. So at a minimum, you'll do a marine survey and haul out, and there's the cost. You can kind of figure it out. Again, that varies a little bit depending on the surveyor, depending on the yard you go to, depending on the size of boat. If you have any thoughts on the engine, if the engine runs really well right from the start on a sea trial, and the marine survey has kind of given it a thumbs up, you don't necessarily have to do an engine survey, but excuse me, if you have any questions at all about the engine, get it surveyed and get somebody looking at it. Sailboat, you should do a rig survey. Let me, I think I'm running out of time here pretty quickly, but rig survey. This 2011 Beneteau 50 that I sold down out of Long Beach, helped my clients find and buy down there. So kind of thinking in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, it's a 2011, you know, the rigging's only what, 9 years old? Gotta be good, right? Oh my God, we were so thankful that we went ahead, you know, the buyer and I talked about it, and it's like, you know what, let's just not have any questions, not have any regrets. Let's get a rig survey. The guy goes up the mast. Yeah, it was only 9 years old, but when they had assembled the boat, they had not put spacers between the aluminum and the stainless. And so there was all kinds of galvanization going on up there, and the spreaders were about to come down. The whole mast was about to come down. And in fact, we had the rig survey done in the morning, and we were doing the sea trial in the afternoon. And the rigger is like, you know, don't go out in a blow. He's like, you know, it's blowing 10 to 15 down here right now. You should be okay with that. Should be. He wasn't making any guarantees. But he said, that's in really bad shape. And he showed us the pictures he took. Very scary stuff. And, you know, we had actually talked about maybe skipping the rig survey. I was so glad we did it. So before we even took that boat from Long Beach down to San Diego, where the buyer was, we had the rigging redone, completely redone before we went out anywhere else on that boat. So it was a good lesson learned that don't assume that just because it's 9 years old, it's good. I've seen better rigging on a 25-year-old boat that hasn't been touched. And if you run into that, we had made an agreement on that boat that we would buy it as is for a number of different reasons. It's a long story. I won't get into it. But because the rigging was a total unknown and so scary, we did negotiate and got that repair allowance for the rigging because they couldn't sell it to anybody else, quite frankly. And here they had a deal, you know, they had a deal just about done. And it was like, okay, you either give in for our repair allowance, which is $5,500, or you go on to the next buyer and spend another month or two going through that. So then one of the things about buying with a broker, if you put a deposit down, unlike real estate, you're entitled to 100% of your deposit back for any reason up until you sign final acceptance. So if you do a sea trial and you don't like the boat, you're done. If you keep looking and you find a different boat and you want your money back, you just get your money back. If you go and do the mechanical and you don't like what they found, you can get your money back. When you get to the point and you say, oh yeah, I'm buying this boat, that's when you can't get your money back anymore. There will be a document you sign that says, this is it. So, and at that point, when you say this is it, we work with a marine title search and documentation company, and the buyer pays for that. I can give you that name because I can strongly recommend Triton Marine Title. And even if you're doing a local buy, a for sale by owner, I highly recommend working with somebody like that because they can help make sure that your bill of sale is done properly, that your U.S. Coast Guard documentation is done properly, that a title search has been not done, and there's no liens on the boat. So, and then she's the one, at that point, we basically turn everything over to her and wait for her, okay, she will tell us, I've got the bill of sale, I've got the Coast Guard documentation ready, I verified that there are no liens on the boat, and now you can start moving money out of the escrow. You pull in the seller's funding or the buyer's funding, and then you can start transferring to the seller. And there it is. And then you live your dream. You go for it. So, so let's see. Are there some questions out there that we need to answer yet? What's my next slide? I think it was, oh, documentation versus state registration. That's like a 2-page explanation. And I decided it was better to give you guys the link to go out and read about it. So if you're really curious about whether should I California register or should I document, then go out and read that because it's more than I want to try and explain in this seminar. But basically some reasons to have your boat documented with the Coast Guard is if you're going to be traveling outside the gate, commercial vessels are definitely required. If you're going to use it for a business of some kind, maybe you want to do lessons or whatever. If you want to get a big loan, the banks are going to ask you for documentation because they're going to do a marine title lien on the boat. And documentation number is for the life of the boat. They are not transferable, but the new owners have to notify the Coast Guard. So you start a whole new process, but you get the same number that goes with the boat. I hope that explains that. So, and we did the Yacht World version of yacht registration versus documentation, and we attached that to the handout that we did. So yes, a documentation is definitely different from a CF number. A CF number means it's registered only within the state. So you really shouldn't be taking the boat out of state. That's why documentation is so important if you're planning on going out the gate. What is the trade-in vessel addendum? I have no idea. Is that maybe, we don't take trade-ins, and there are very few yacht brokers that will. If you're buying a brand new 2021 Catalina 42, yeah, they might take your boat on trade. That's pretty much the only time I hear of them taking trades, is if you're buying a pretty big expensive boat instead of it. But most of the time they won't take trade-ins. So my thought on lien sales, interesting. Yes. Well, the Beneteau 50 that I sold was actually a lien sale. It was going through a broker, but it had been repossessed. And so there were a lot of things that we found out about it and things that we couldn't find out about it. And that's why we did a lot of due diligence on it. But it ended up being a wonderful boat for them. And I helped him with my husband. We helped him take it from Long Beach down to San Diego. And it was a dream to get down the coast. It was just a really nice boat. Very nice boat. We had a great time that weekend, even though we just met the clients. Like, you know, I'd met them a few times, worked with them a lot, but we just hit it off, and they're friends for life now. Really nice people. So, and I'm sorry, but I keep doing that. I keep ending up being friends with my clients. So where my boat is at Oakland Yacht Club, on one side, I sold them the Catalina 375. And on the other side is a Catalina 36 that I sold to them. And they ended up joining the yacht club on my recommendation, but then they ended up being my boat neighbors, and now we're all friends. And even with COVID, you know, we can sit on our boats and we can talk across to each other. So it's great. Oh, here we go. At Denison, we'll only take a trade if you're buying a brand new boat. Yeah. And boy, I don't necessarily recommend it either, because you'll make more money trying to sell it than trade in. Thank you, Kimberly Dumas. I appreciate that. But yeah, you just won't find very many. And it's like turning in your car to a dealership. It's like, no. So for the private PSA, do you have an addendum with your contingencies? Again, I'm not really sure. We do allowances. We don't usually do contingencies. So I'm not really sure where those, you're going to have to explain your questions a little bit more. So more questions. Here comes one. How does one certify titles in the case of a lien? That the owner is no longer the owner? You know, that's a good question. I learned all this. I don't think I would have known it before I dealt with the Beneteau 50. That is where my person at Triton Marine Title became invaluable. So at that point on a lien sale, the bank owned the boat. So the bank was actually the owner of record. And then the marine title person had to work with the bank to get everything signed off and legal, and make sure she had the right person's name on the bill of sale before we funded. And it did take a little bit longer, and it ended up costing the buyer more to make sure that we got everything together. But you definitely want the use of a really good marine title search group. And there are others, but that's just one that we use a lot. And it's a woman-owned business, so I totally love Peg. She and her daughter do a great job for us, and just she knows so much. So because I've heard of problems at a lien auction. Yeah, I would tend to stay away from a lien if it's not through a broker that can deal with the bank. You don't know what you're getting. They don't give you a chance to really do your due diligence, from what I understand. That's just too scary. If you can't get a good look at the boat, why would you buy it? Would you buy a car sight unseen? Probably not. Without driving it? No, don't do it with a boat either. Get some time on it. And honestly, look at it at least twice. If you put a deposit on it, make sure that you have a right of refusal where you can come back. I always want people to come back and take a second look, because when I do that, I find that they settle down a little bit. It's like, yeah, this is my dream boat, but wait, I didn't notice that chipped corner before, or that door that was unhinged, or that kind of thing. And I've dealt with clients that did that. I had some clients that fell in love with this power boat, and it was a 2017, but it'd been in charter. And when we took it out for the, or when we first went to look at it, they just were like, yeah, I want this boat. It looks fast. We're going to do this. And then I'm like, let's do a sea trial. Let's really get back on the boat a second time. We went out did the sea trial. We already had the surveys and everything scheduled for the later that week. They ended up dropping the boat. It's like, you know what? I don't like the way this drives. I didn't notice all the little dings and dents before. Go for it. Look at it at least twice. You know, bring a friend along and look at it. Honestly, get as many opinions as you can. I highly recommend that, just because it's so easy to fall in love with a boat. So easy. And not look at it with clear eyes. What is the mechanism to propose contingencies? Negotiate. Oh, well, within a brokerage, we do the purchase offer, and then we do the surveys, and maybe you find out, like, right now I have a boat that's in contract, and it turns out the motor mounts are loose, and that's a huge repair. So that was the boat we were taking up to KKMI today, actually. So the motor mounts is a multiple $1,000 repair. The seller is still interested in buying the boat, but he wants that fixed first. So rather than negotiate in that case, we said the seller's going to fix it and the buyer's going to wait. But what sometimes happens is you say, oh, there's a leak around the mast, but you know what? I can take that, live with it, fix it myself, or get a yard to fix it. But you get a price, you get a negotiation price for, oh, I need to fix this mast. So is that going to be $350? Or, you know, you've got a through hulls, you know, you need to replace the through hulls. Can we just make a deal? Because I'm going to go pull it out to do a bottom job anyway, and I'll have the through hulls done then. So give me the boat, give me a negotiated allowance. We'll take that off the price, and I'll take the boat now. And what happens is people may say, oh, well, you know, all the running rigging needs to be replaced. So give me a $2,000 allowance. And instead of going to a rigger, they do it themselves, and maybe it only cost them $500, but they got $2,000 off the boat. So more questions? Any more questions? I've been talking a long time.
Done some
Anything
good
more
talking,
about-
Michelle.
Yeah, anything more about like buying a boat through a private owner? Just go into it with eyes wide open. And boat people are generally good people, but they might also be just trying to get a boat off their hands because it's an albatross. Especially now, there are people that have lost their jobs, you know, or haven't been able to work for months, and they need to get out from underneath that monthly slip fee and the maintenance and stuff. There's a lot of boats out there for sale in the under 50,000 category right now. So do you have to have a survey to get insurance? Often you do, especially if you have a bigger boat, a newer boat, but even an older boat. It's all up to the insurance company. Yeah. So boats are so complicated, comprising so many different systems, that if you aren't a surveyor, take the time to find a really good one. Yep. Oh, he tells his story. I fell in love with a boat for sale on my dock. And just by talking to a few people, I fell out of love overnight. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Fall in love, but go in it with clear eyes so that you're asking the right questions. Oh, joint ownership. Boy, I don't have much to say about that, just because I know that it works for some people. I know people that have been boat partners for 15 years or more. I know that some friends of mine bought a boat out of a boat partnership that was 3 equal people up in the Washington area. Everybody has to agree to sell, though. It's even like a co-buyer. Like, you know, if I want to sell my boat, I can't do it unless my husband agrees, because his name's on it too. So that's joint ownership. So, yeah. Hi, Nancy. Nancy said thanks.
We really
Oh no, lots
appreciate
that we
all
learned the
this.
hard way. I'm so sorry. I hope that this really helps. We're going to kind of do some follow-ups and bring along a woman surveyor, I hope, in April. I think Melissa's trying to get her on board so that she
Right.
can answer some questions.
And insurance.
Yeah. So
We hope you'll be part of it too, Michelle.
Yeah, oh, yeah, hopefully I'll be able to. Don't,
We
yeah,
want to thank you, Michelle,
yeah.
giving us so much information and really speaking so plainly and matter of factly about all this to us. It's wonderful. Would you stay on as we say goodbye if we all go on to gallery view? And maybe some people will just we'll all kind of decompress a little bit and get to see
Yeah.
each other if people want to do that. But so everybody put yourself on gallery and be able to, once Ross turns off the PowerPoint, and I just want to say thank you to you for joining us tonight. We are just really so happy and thankful that we can bring these very educational evenings to you while we're sitting at home during
Yeah,
the
I see people I
pandemic
know.
and
Yeah.
having the opportunity to be able to learn and also share time with each other. So I'm gonna say a couple of things just in closing. One is if you cannot open up your handout for any reason, we gave you the handouts in the email. You can go on iyc.org/events and you should be able to get it there. And then you could print out all that information. Michelle's information is there too, contact information if you need her. Be kind. And and the
It's
other
easier to get
thing
me,
is if
it's easier
you
to get
want,
me with an email, actually, if you have
and
questions.
it's easier to
please.
get her with email. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
try that
I do
first.
spend a lot of time on the phone.
Right. And the other thing is for February 1, if you are interested in joining the Yacht Club for the evening with us and just kind of meeting some of our other members, you can just email us at info@iyc.org and ask us for the invite. We won't be sending it out until closer to it, but info@iyc.org is a good place to be able to get in touch with us. So I hope you've enjoyed your evening. I see a lot of purple jackets on the screen tonight. I think a bunch of us are wearing our new fleece jackets that we got from the Women's Sailing Seminar. And so we're excited to be in camaraderie over that.
Mine's
There you
gray.
go. Look at Janet, man. She's wearing it proudly.
Mine's
And
gray.
I did want to say one other thing about Michelle, and that she has been an instructor at Women's Sailing Seminar for years, and just
I'm old.
talks the talks and walks the walk with us. And we appreciate the support that she's given us in the past.
And I love sharing my boat and sharing the experience. I see some people that have been on my boat before, and I race against Dawn, and I've worked with Nancy Hurd, and yeah, there's a bunch of names, and Lauren's there. Hi, Lauren, and yeah. So I hope I get to meet all of you at some point, and hope to see you on the water. Really, thank you for listening, and I hope it was helpful and not too preachy, and I'm not trying to sell my services, but for sure, I just really would like to see more people have a good experience buying a boat, because it can also be very much a roller coaster and a heartbreak. And when you finally get there, it's well worth it.
Yes, it's wonderful. And so many people are, wanting to find life outside of their homes during the pandemic. So they're thinking boats. Well, Michelle's giving you some things to think about before you just get out there and sign your name on the bottom line. So
Yeah.
we really appreciate that. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions? So nice to see all your faces.
And thank you for all the thank yous. That's very nice of you. Thank you guys for showing up. It was really nice to have you.
There's so much to think about. I really appreciate all the great information. Thank you.
Yeah,
Welcome.
it is a lot to think about, but it's so worth it. If you love sailing and you get a chance to be out there all the time, it just makes a difference when you own. I have to say, I feel like I didn't really learn to sail until I had my own boat, and that was my Hobie Cat 14. I had to get it and make my mistakes and figure out what I was doing, and I'm just lucky I didn't do anything too stupid. Dropping it in the water without drain plugs. Okay, I did that, but I didn't run it into a power line, which is
Even the best of us.
yeah. I couldn't hear that comment. Okay, might have been somebody that didn't mean to come on, but
I said, see, honey, even the best of us does that, because I did that with my current husband. The first time I took him out sailing, we forgot to put the drain plugs in.
That's Lauren.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Lauren,
So
I
yeah, I did that a few times, and then I pretty much learned to check them every time. Yeah,
That's
they're
right.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, somebody's asking a question over here.
Yosh is.
Do you suggest, whoops, I can't quite see it because I'm,
A smaller day sailor. Hold on, I lost it
oh, do you
too.
suggest a smaller day sailor before buying? I actually highly recommend that if there's time for one more story. So I met this couple at the boat show, and the guy had a PowerPoint ready for me when we sat down to talk about boats, because his dream was a blue water boat that they would go, and he would charter and do lessons and teach people. And he would get his captain's license, and he didn't have that yet. He had a lot of time at Club Nautique, which is a great place to learn. But he had this whole PowerPoint about this $250,000 boat he wanted, but he'd never owned a boat before. So I worked with this couple for a long time and helped them find a boat. And they are one of the boats that's sitting next to me right now. They ended up with a Catalina 36, because we talked about, if you want to get your captain's license, you need time on the water before you need a boat payment. And they could afford the Catalina 36 without going deeply into debt, just getting a little of a credit union loan for them, and it got them into the boat. And now he's getting all his hours in. He just finished his captain's license. He's gathering his hours so that he can apply, fill out the application and actually get qualified. But he keeps telling me, they tell me all the time, we love the Catalina. We're so happy we started here, but he's still shopping for that next boat. But he's got a much better idea now of what he wants, and he's getting more comfortable at the helm because he's getting so much tiller time. And tiller time is what makes you become a better sailor. You just got to have time on the water where you're making your mistakes and you're trying things and you're doing things. And so, oh, and look, there's an upcoming boating bloopers about how we learn from our mistakes.
Something to share.
So yeah, basically my suggestion is not necessarily a day sailor, but start a little smaller, like an Islander 28, a good solid old boat, as Islander 28, a Tartan 30, a Catalina 30. I was a Catalina snob until I started working for the Catalina dealer. And I have really become to appreciate how much the Catalinas are a well thought out boat, well built, and great resale. So they're a great starter boat if you know you're going to be moving on later or very soon, because you can get out there and learn to bash and learn what a sail cost and what it takes to reef a sail, and you can learn all those things and then apply it to a bigger boat. But you can turn around a Catalina sail pretty quickly, whether it be a 30 or a 42 or a 36. You get a little Catalina and then get ready for your next boat. Yep, and Club Nautique is a great school. I see that mentioned out here. I often recommend people, but then you can also get private lessons with somebody like Lauren, and some of the other skippers that I could give you connections with that will do lessons on your boat, which make it very useful. Instead of spending an entire weekend at Club Nautique, now that you've bought a boat, get somebody for 4 hours on your boat working with you if you're a husband and wife or if you're partners on the boat. So that kind of thing can just be invaluable. And somebody say we're looking at Catalina 27 one owner, that has the potential to be a great deal. For even if it's 40 years old, the Catalina's 27s are built like tanks, man. If it's been well loved by that one owner, that's a deal. And you probably don't have to spend a huge ton of money. Yeah. So, Linda taught at Club Nautique as well. That's cool. Yeah. So there's lots of podcasts out there, lots of people, there's Linda's podcast, there's other ones, use the internet. If you're just beginning sailor and think you want to own a boat someday, get out there and learn that language and take your lessons and learn what you can from other people. Offer to crew on a race if somebody will take you out. So, okay, we've gone long now. I know we're going long. I know everybody loves to talk sailing. I know I do. So,
does anybody have any other thoughts? Anything they want to share? Janet just put up the URL for Linda's podcast. If you hadn't caught it before, take it down now or copy and paste it because it's an awful lot.
Yeah.
And I think then we're ready to say good night. And thank you so much.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for listening and for all your great questions.
And stay in touch with us.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing you at our next event. Maybe it'll be on the Water for Women Sailing Seminar in September.
Yeah.
Take care.
Cool.
Good night.
Okay, bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Michelle.